In this commission is the only one of its kind across the state at the state level that represents African immigrants.
You feel like all I need to do is maybe on a Sunday or on a Friday go to a place of worship and just say, oh, I'm running for office, and you do this and you do that, and we just go and vote for that. We just go out and vote for you.
So when the Haitian community in Springfield, for example, is demonized and attacked, know for sure, I promise you that this would eventually come against your community.
Of course, absolutely.
Ibrahim, let me start with you. I am more interested, and I think the audience will be more interested in knowing a little bit about you recently been appointed to the African Immigrant Commissioner. So tell us what that embodies as far as the organization, and specifically tell us a little bit more some of the roles that you will be occupying.
Absolutely.
I
appreciate the invitation.
Thank you.
With esteemed guests that I'll be also learning from, like Attorney Mazen, like Dr. Barth. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity of being appointed the first executive director for the Ohio African Immigrant Commission. In this commission is the only one of its kind across the state at the state level that represents African immigrants. And so that's, of all places, Ohio has that. And the commission was created in 2008 in the 128th, 29th General Assembly. So it is in the Ohio Revised Code. It is state law. The legislature did create the commission with, at the time, Marty Tequilo, Kay Wilson, and a whole bunch of other champions that we, some living, some not, that we can really thank for the countless efforts that they did to be able to get us a representation at the state level. So the commission staffed with 11 volunteers from across the state, including Abbas Bangura from Sierra Leone, in Columbus to Dr. Ellis, Dr. Prince Ellis in Cincinnati, who's an economics professor at the University of Cincinnati, to Dr. Salaru, who is an amazing entrepreneur over in Cleveland. So it's staffed across the state, and we have the responsibility of not only advocating, but advising the governor and the legislature.
So it's a diversity within diversity.
Yes. So it's one of the few places, and I think our peer friends at the Latino Commission may also have the same challenge, which is because it's a population-based, culture-based commission rather than a subject-based matter commission. We have the responsibility, sometimes complicated, to not only represent African immigrants across Ohio's 88 counties, but also to make sure that it has representation from across the continent of Africa, everything from south of the Sahara. And so sometimes it's a delicate balance between making sure it's not male-dominated, it's not West African-dominated, it's not Muslim-dominated. So there's a lot of nuance because humanity is complicated, and so are African immigrants.
Yeah, it is, absolutely, for sure. Why it took so long, though? It was created 2008, but now I feel like it's just now completed. I think you're the last one to be appointed. Am I right or not?
So in 2008, the commission was created in state law and signed by the governor. At the time, it was Governor Strickland.
Okay.
So a couple governors ago.
Okay.
Yes, so it was dormant because there a lot of politics. It's sometimes when you want to be an institution, you immerse yourself in the politics, and so there were about a decade, a whole 10 years, almost 10 years, until Governor Kasich, in his last term, on his last almost a year and a half, left in office, that he decided to appoint the initial 6 people to the commission and actually bring it to life. And so I was fortunate enough to have been part of those initial conversations and been appointed as one of the initial 6. And then one of my term expired earlier in 2014. I decided to not renew it and step away from the volunteer role. But last year, with Senator Sykes and Senator Michelle Reynolds, we were able to finally get funding for the commission. Not only did it not have people, it not had funding. So it was the only commission that did not have funding previously. And so we finally had funding, as limited as it may be. When we had funding, now we have an opportunity to have staff to it. So it's not 11 volunteers always doing the role of what staff should be doing. And so that for the longest time was the limiting factor in the commission's ability to not only be present, but also support different organizations across the state. And so now with that funding this year, I was appointed by the city commissioners as the executive director. So it's a paid position. To where now I'll be exercising the potential of that commission throughout the state, and being a little more vocal and active. And just to put in a plug, there will be, we have a responsibility to put out grants. And so that is one way that we'll be supporting organizations across the state through a grant-making process that will be released soon.
Excellent.
I'm going to be coming for him.
Yeah, please.
For sure.
Yeah.
We're going to be coming for him.
Yeah. I thought you said, can I comment? I'm like, well, yeah, exactly. You're going to be a doorway for many people, I'll tell you that. And I think it's exciting to see, what was started from a volunteer now to a full-time paid position, and there's going to be a lot of people will be looking up to that. But prior to that, I think you ran for the city council, right?
I was hoping that wouldn't come. Yes.
Okay. No, I'm trying. Some people might think that oftentimes people will just jump into a judgment when you see somebody that has been recently appointed to something, right? So, you have done your legwork, is what I'm trying to get at, to make sure that you're qualified to do that as well.
This is true. So our commissioners felt that I was qualified.
Fair enough.
To have appointed, but in 2015, I did run for city council as a foreign-born Muslim son of a refugee, the immigrant Republican for Columbus City Council. And at the time, it was an exciting race because it allowed me to be able to share the values that I have that turned out I have so many people in common with. And it allowed me to not only show a different part of the Republican Party before it was hijacked a year later, and turned into this monster that a lot of people don't recognize.
Right.
But the values remain the same. Kind of what led me to it and what convinced a lot of people to vote Republican for the first time. It was because I did that legwork of being able to build those relationships with people. And I think that kind of followed me into having a seat on the commission initially when I was appointed by Governor Kasich, and now this role. So you got to put in the work.
Yeah. Absolutely. Dr. Shepkong, you're involved in a lot of different organizations, and I think you are one of the co-founders of the Columbus African Festivals, right? What are the challenges, or what do you think that now we have the newly African, Immigrant Commission put together, how we can push it to have more immigrants to participate in that?
Well, I'm glad that my friend over here is the newly appointed executive director, and I hope that they will also, the commission will basically help us in terms of spreading the word out there. When he spoke about grant, you could see that I was smiling. It's in all honesty, as an immigrant, I can tell you, it's very, very, it's a Herculean task for us and myself and those that are involved. By the way, he's also involved in helping us, making sure that the festival, he was one of the first people that we started talking about the festival together. But it's a huge task in terms of staging that kind of an event financially. It's tough, and I keep saying that most of the time I'm beginning to be tired of going to the city council to ask for money. We have to diversify and look at things, from different.
I think at some point locally that has to be supported by the local people as well.
Absolutely, and so it's an event that just trying to put Africa out there on the map. Not just in Central Ohio, but our aim is to to make it one of the biggest, festivals or events in the Midwest. And it also brings a lot to the city, because in terms of, just like last year that we had, no, this year actually, we had a bunch of people that came from outside of state, outside of the state of Ohio.
You mean new immigrants or just general people moving in?
I'm talking about people that came for the festival,
I was one of them, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen I've seen people that came all the way from Missouri, people from people from Louisiana, and you look at it from the economic aspect, it's also adding a little bit, maybe a little bit small, but adding to the economy of the city. So our hope and prayers is every year to see it grow. Just like we started in 2019, and at Innis Park, and it took us way down to Genoa Park, and we just want to maintain that.
Yeah.
At Genoa Park for the long run. But in terms of attendance, we hope that it's not just for Africans. It's for people that we are showcasing African culture, not to Africans, but to non-Africans, so that they can be able to. And it's not just about meet and grill. This year we did a lot of things. We did different things, like the business forum that was held, which was great. We got some kind of little bit of grants from the Franklin County, whereby we gave it to the three best people that showcase their project, and so we hope to do that. And of course, during the business forum, we also we launched the new Ohio African Chamber of Commerce, whereby we're working on making sure that it's all. So all these things are geared towards advocating for Africans out there. Struggling, people that need help and resources. We're also talking about gatekeepers. We really want to, hold those people we elect into power accountable. So, yeah.
And I see a lot of people that are doing a lot of work in Columbus, Ohio, in terms of helping, one another from different ethnicity groups and all that. But I think Columbus has a lot more people coming in, and I think every person who is part of the Franklin County that I talk to kind of sort of complain about housing, and I think that's one thing that I feel like is one of those things that kind of sort of snuck up on the city in terms of how to be prepared. So there's a lot of immigrants coming here in Columbus. From your experience in terms of attorney, immigration attorney, and how has that impacted you? Do you see a lot of people coming through for assistance? Do you see a lot of people challenge? I know you did mention also you're the president of the nonprofit
Riverview International Center, yeah.
And so you do help a lot of immigrants get settled in the greater Columbus. So what are your challenges? What are the experiences that you do see that you can share with us on that?
I mean, the challenges are enormous on all levels. As an attorney, I'm seeing there's an influx of people coming in town. And new immigrants, some through the southern border, some through other ways, and there aren't any resources in central Ohio that could really support such a community, even on terms of legal representation. Many of the major cities have, for example, organizations, nonprofits that have attorneys that represent people in the immigration system, help them get settled, help them get on the correct path legally. And we don't have any in Central Ohio. Legal aid recently just started to work very limited on immigration, but it's extremely limited. And so we don't have that in Central Ohio. In Ohio in general, it's very rare, but Northeast Cleveland area has a little bit more resources than Central Ohio. In terms of housing and other, that is a big issue for everyone in Central Ohio. I don't think it was caused by immigrants. I don't think that immigrants, it's a bigger issue that just happens to be easily thrown at immigrants as a reason.
Yeah.
must be addressed. But again, there aren't enough resources to support new immigrants, new Americans, through the center that I've been the chair of the board for 2 years now. For example, we help people with everything they need from the moment they land to the U.S. moving forward. When it comes to, writing a resume, finding a job, learning English, tutoring their kids, teaching them how to drive, getting them health insurance, and so on. So we help them with all these things with very limited funding. Unfortunately, the city, the state, the federal government, they have different programs, but they can't really reach the average person that's on the street. They can't reach this immigrant and his family and cause actual effect on him. It takes community organizing, community centers, community relationships to be able to reach those in need, and not just in those beautiful rooms and meetings and conferences.
Yeah.
That's not where you would find those who are in need. You need to actually be on the street helping those people.
Yeah. And there is that, saying that it takes a village to raise a boy,
Correct.
right? So how do we build that community?
I mean, there's so many ways, and really what those new immigrants need is very simple, to be honest. I mean, very, very small things could go a long way in helping them. And I'm not here on behalf of the Riverview International Center on the RIC, but I do invite you to, invite people to learn more about it, because the idea of how it started and how it's working is really something that amazed me since I first was introduced to it. The Riverview Drive near OSU campus, it was a hub for new immigrants.
Yeah.
A lot of the refugees, specifically Somali refugees and then the Iraqi refugees and so on, used to go there. Now the community is more diverse. We have some Afghanis, we have a lot of Africans, mainly from Algeria and other countries. A lot of them actually came on the lottery visa. And those who come on the lottery visas don't get any assistance. They're completely on their own, unlike refugees when they have a resettlement agency. But the way it started was just a group of people noticed that there's all these new immigrants in this neighborhood and no one is really looking at them. So a group of people used to go and just do, barbecues on the street there near the masjid, on one of the sidewalks even. And then one of the building owners said, what, how about I give you guys one of the apartments to use it as a center to help people.
Okay.
And that's how it started. And really, we don't give any handouts. And those new immigrants are not asking for handouts. What they're asking for is, help me find a job.
Yes.
Help me write a resume.
Yeah.
Help me get internet connection into my apartment. Help me find the service.
Yeah.
Help me get a phone. Help me learn how to use the busing system until I learn how to drive. And those things, imagine if you help someone figure out how to go on the bus from where they live to a job that you just found them. And if you just establish that for them, the transportation from where you live to your work, find him that job, imagine how much that could make a difference for them.
Yeah.
The kids that come with their parents who go to school, new language, new culture, new everything, and then, we all know how much schools now rely on parents for homework and so on. So who's going to help them with this homework if their parents themselves don't know this language and so on? So if you just have a homework center, and really volunteering, helping people with those small tasks, helping them complete their kids' homework or something could make a huge difference in their lives.
I'm going to put this question to everybody, and just to feel free to kind of sort of jump in if you feel like in entering. All those people that are coming, they're facing culture shock, right? But they're also facing the mental health side of that as well. But from experience, that doesn't sneak up until years in. You might not experience, the mental side of it that goes along with that, because first, you're kind of sort of new to this whole new environment. That, I'm glad I made it. In that shock. So, how much is the mental health that has effect on it? People that are certainly settled in the right way of kind of set it in for success.
I'll briefly share. There have been instances that we've seen that I think not only broke my heart, but a lot of other people, and allowed us, at least, I think just beyond African immigrants, but immigrants, refugees in general that have been here for a long time, really have a better hold or an understanding of the system, quote unquote, and are very much well adjusted. It kind of put us in a little bit of a shock. Some of us responded, other ones proceeded as everything is normal.
Yeah.
In two of those instances I'll mention is when I was working with Us Together at some point, and a good number of the
Us Together is an organization?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's one of the two resettlement agencies now.
Okay.
It's in Central Ohio.
Even
Also.
that is kind of shut down almost.
Wow.
It's
Even our
on its
resettlement
last leg,
agencies are
yes.
almost disappearing.
Yeah, it's hard to tell if new administration coming in will kind of shift that, but there's also a lot of different nuances that have to do with that. But I appreciate you mentioning that. When they were working with recent Afghans that were just arriving last year, or 2 years ago now, in 2022, one of the biggest things that was a problem for their caseworkers was not being able to communicate effectively with some of the Afghan refugees that were now arriving. And one of the things included that there was a sense of entitlement, that they were just complicated to work with. They had all these different demands and X, Y, and Z. And the same pattern that I was seeing in every conversation was that culture shock that was how they were expressing it. Being in a new environment that was not violence ridden, or that they were not at risk for their lives. Calm was a new foreign thing to them at some degree. And I think not being able to understand that allows you to look at this person both as a victim and as a victim that is also having a sense of entitlement, or that may be complicated to work with. I think there's that kind of misunderstanding of culture, and I think in an extreme sense, we saw a few years ago when we had some members of the community, in the Eritrean community more particularly, have, and also in the Guinean community, have murder-suicides that seem to sort of sporadically come out of nowhere. And that was a shock for people that, one, suicide is a foreign concept to us, though it exists. And also mental health, to the point that it leads to suicide or even homicide, is still a foreign concept to us, right? But then we tell ourselves, this is not us. But then that kind of, it dismisses the underlying factors that may be in multiple households, just waiting to blow up. And I think that's sometimes, I think in ourselves as a larger community, there are plenty of signs around mental health and culture shock. And I think that shows up in how parents at times respond to whether they're involved or not, or the level of engagement for the kids, the amount of domestic issues that have among couples. But I think we see that in many places, and we try to categorize that in different ways that make it make sense in our cultures, but really dismiss the reality of it.
And
If
that,
I may add on that is taking a step back, is that the decision to leave your country, your home, your life, your family, is not something that anyone does easily. Right?
No.
There's always a reason behind it, and especially in countries that have a lot of violence and wars and destruction or poverty, people live there on survival mode, where only if you could get in the first in the line, if you could cut the line, if you could fight through the crowds, that's the only way you will survive. Because that's how you would get that small help or aid or so on. And even when you reach the U.S., you're still in that survival mode, because now you're thrown into a country that you don't know any language, culture, and so on. So you're still in the survival mode. And the idea of mental health, it has in general, in most of those countries, it has a negative stigma that people refuse to acknowledge, that there is a mental health issue, for example. Okay, they refuse to address it or acknowledge it even. So that's why it takes time for them to actually see that maybe we need that help. But because they were in survival mode before they came here, and then here in the survival mode, and don't find that support that's needed. And often, again, I mean, the help that you need when you're in that situation needs to be something that communities, cultures and communities understand each other more than others.
Yeah.
So if you're dealing with the Afghani, let's say refugees, the best way to handle that is to have people from their own community who have been established here from before them to be able to support them best, because they understand them the most. They understand what they're coming from and what's their background and what's their culture and so on. But if you just get those, if it's just a center that, resettlement agency, you don't have that sensitivity towards their culture and background. So as much as you try to help them, you're not going to understand them and they're not going to understand you. And there's always going to be this unbalanced relationship that's not going to be the most effectively able to help them.
Absolutely. I completely agree. This idea of one size fits all concept does not really work. Just speaking, I just thought about a friend that, he's from Iran, right? We're just having this conversation. A professional from Iran that came to the United States. As a matter of fact, an attorney, and then he was, I would rather go back to Iran than. So I completely agree with what you said. Making a decision to come here is not really an easy decision, because you're basically leaving everything, and jumping into a country that it will take you time to assimilate or integrate, and that brings a whole lot of challenges. That brings about psychological trauma, and I'm glad you talked about the domestic violence, because that is also a huge problem. That culturally we say we don't talk about it, but it exists due to some of the challenges that people. I'm not making excuses for anybody, but it's when you look at it, it's due to some of the challenges that people are dealing with. So I think, for me to help, let's say for example, a Nigerian, who is dealing with mental health, it would be better for a Nigerian to be of that help to a Nigerian than someone that does not understand the Nigerian culture. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done in terms of looking at it holistically from a different perspective.
In the immigrant community itself, it's within part of diversity, right? How do we celebrate that as a strength? So now there is all kinds of different communities, right? So I guess my question that I'm going with it, we're in election season, we'll have an upcoming election, right? So what impact do we have on that?
It is.
It's that's a loaded question, right?
I mean, the last part when you threw election, you complicated it. But look, diversity is always obviously good, and I mean, immigrants as a whole is a minority population, right? So obviously, it needs to somehow figure out how to stand together to have any significant impact. I don't think we're taking advantage of that. I think minorities in general, whether it's immigrants, Muslim, African, whatever you want to call different minorities, we still don't have that ability to work together. That's one of the problems, I think, honestly, is with and to connect it with the elections with the Democratic Party. Is that it's based on a coalition rather than on just one ideology. Versus the Republican Party that was mostly towards an ideology that didn't really have a coalition of different groups in it. And that's what makes it more difficult for a Democratic administration, let's say, to make any meaningful difference, because you get this coalition together against the other ideology instead of on a shared agreed idea. We haven't reached that point where we could actually stick together as minorities to become an effective voice. Because if at the end of the day, when decision making is going to happen, everyone's going to look at how do I advance my agenda more. I have these conversations, for example, within the Muslim community a lot. When they start talking about religion and politics, and how they don't agree with other minority groups based on religious ideas. And my answer is always this: you're not living in a state that you're a majority in. So your ideologies is never going to govern this country. Therefore, you want to look for the coalition of allies of other minorities
Yeah.
that would help you all advance one thing that would benefit all of you, which is your freedom as minorities.
Right.
So if all minorities get more, any group of these minorities gets more freedom, definitely all of the other minorities are going to take advantage and benefit from it. But if you agree to the suppression of one group minority, because you tend not to agree with them on something,
Yeah.
then that suppression of that group eventually is going to lead to suppress you as well,
Yeah.
as another minority. So if you think about it as this, collectively as minorities, we need to work together to advance our collective freedoms as minorities. And therefore, then each one of us could try to work on advancing their own community. But you need to find that shared common ground, and we
Yeah.
don't really look into it in that close.
If that doesn't exist, how we bridge it? It's another complicated
We have to
question,
find
right?
a way
Yeah.
to bridge that.
Yeah.
You know, we have to look at what unites us most of the time than what divides us, you know,
Yeah.
because I think most of the time we just focus on our differences
Yeah.
instead of
Yeah.
looking at what really the commonality that we have. We are already at a disadvantage because
Yeah.
we are minorities,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that should
Yeah.
that should even say something to us. So why can't we just focus on, you know, first of all, we're all immigrants.
Yeah.
You know, we're immigrants. You know, maybe we can focus on what really unites us.
Yeah.
Because we tend all, I mean, I can say that about the African community, the African
Yeah.
immigrants.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I'm Nigerian, I'm Senegalese, I'm this, I'm that. Why can't we just look at ourselves as Africans first?
And I think a great
No.
point of that is when the Columbus African Festival was happening. There is a lot more Africans that are actually here in Columbus that could, maybe one of it, we need to create more awareness of that. The new Immigrant African Commission, you know, how do you guys, you know, bridge that? Or I know we talked about a grant. I know that's one people that will get a lot of people.
That would unite us, as a matter of fact.
But also, you know, what are the what are the things that you can just share with us that could be done, you know, in the future, in the pipeline, that we can say, okay, well, hey, this is something to look forward to. That, you know, this is what the agency was created for to begin with.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would say I appreciate that. What Brother Mazen was talking about in his interpretation of what those kind of coalitions look like, and what is the best approach in finding common ground that everyone can kind of agree on. Knowing that in a minority, there are realities that come with it. And so what are some of the things that make us the most effective together? I think in two things that the commission is looking for next year to really capitalize on, given that next year is the operating budget for the state, is that one aspect of advocacy is about empowering people to be able to talk and develop and speak for themselves. And how we best do that is giving them an opportunity, a platform in front of a legislator, and giving them, these are the two things that you advocate for, go. And I think that allows me to not be the sole mouthpiece, or the commission of 11 people, to not be the only one speaking on behalf of over 80,000 people across 88 counties. 80,000 people across 88 counties can speak on behalf of themselves. And I think that's the mindset of how do we empower each household, each individual, to not only feel like they can speak for themselves, whether it's at a school board meeting, whether it's connecting with their state senator or state legislature, or running into the governor and saying X, Y, and Z is important to me, because it doesn't matter where you come from and how much rights you had there. What is important is where you are and what your rights are here. And I think Brother Mazen will agree with that the best way to allow people to be their best selves is to have them find ways to advocate for themselves. And I think that's the direction that the commission goes into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing is this, most of the immigrant communities don't understand ideas, or not don't understand, have never really practiced civic engaged political life in their own countries.
Absolutely.
That those communities in general don't understand too much about how to get civilly, engaged in politics, because it doesn't exist in their home countries. And then here, they don't feel or understand that it could be effective if they work harder. And that was proven to us, for example, in the past year. You know, as a Palestinian American, Muslim American, we tried, for example, the same senator, the same congresswoman, the same elected officials that used to come and meet with us and try or to act like they could listen to us to seek our votes and support, they completely disconnected from us in the whole year. They refused to meet with us. They refused to engage with us. They refused to listen to our requests from them. I know, for example, a phone bank, just a phone bank that we started, used to make tens of thousands of calls on a daily basis to, for example, Sherrod Brown's office or to Joyce Beatty's office, right? To send the same message, please call for a ceasefire. And both of them completely ignored it. I've had staffers in their offices hang up on me and other community members when we just say, please tell the senator that we want a ceasefire. They would just hang up on you, right? So then we realized that, okay, then all those years that we've been supporting this person or voting or calling or meeting, it's just really a photo op. Because when it comes to something meaningful, they don't want to engage with you. A city council, for example, if you go to them and tell them, please recognize April as Arab American Heritage Month or January as Muslim American Heritage Month or whatever, okay? They would do it in a heartbeat. Because it's just a symbolic gesture of, oh, we see you, okay? But then if you go to them and say, we need you to take a stance on not sending any funding to kill people in Congo, for example, okay? Or stop, sending arms to the UAE who's sending them to Sudan to kill Sudani people, right? They're going to tell you, no, that's out of my, I'm not going to go there. But that's the meaningful thing. The meaningful thing is when you actually could use them as a way to send out your voice and concerns about what's happening locally and globally. But what they refuse to do that and they just want you for that photo op or that cultural thing or that, nice gesture, they'll do it. That's
Now, Brother Mazen, can I ask? So there's this disconnect between, I think, oftentimes where we're looking at between that symbolic gesture versus something of substance. In what we understand, at least when it comes to the elected politicians, is that if you are not putting together a campaign fundraiser, or yourself giving a big check, or you can't pull in a whole bunch of people, that you're not that, you don't have that much weight, right? Like
You're not that important.
Yeah, it's more of whatever you want is a recommendation versus something of political pressure. And so I think oftentimes we do fail, and this is where it comes to some of the gatekeepers that we've sometimes not by choice, but by
Default,
allowing just to speak on our behalf, that go into these rooms with whoever it may be and speak on our behalf, that really roll over and don't give anything of substance or don't demand anything of substance. And I think some of those gatekeepers we do need to reevaluate across communities. But I also do think that we need to your point, Abdul, earlier, to start capitalizing on, for example, in the 3rd Congressional District, 34% of, around 30 to 34% of the identified black population is foreign-born, right? And so the Congresswoman does not know that a big pool are these Africans who can vote potentially, but either don't vote or do not care enough to vote. How do we capitalize on that big pool of people to say, we need you to do X, Y, and Z?
Right.
Because in her head, if she goes to a few churches, she's good to go. And in many places, there's a sample ballot that cruises you to victory.
Right.
And I think oftentimes we don't challenge, to Brother Mazen's point, we don't challenge those mechanisms that allow for people to disregard some things and kind of get away with it. But we also have community leaders, quote unquote, that enable those people for their own benefit, but then come to us back and say, well, this is my good friend X, Y, and Z. What event do you have coming up?
Can I say just a quick example here? At the beginning of what's happening now in Gaza, we tried so much to request a meeting with the governor, because the governor, for a period of, 3-4 months, had the Israeli flag on his profiles on social media and so on. And I was surprised, you're the governor of the state of Ohio. Why do you have a foreign country's flag?
Let's go.
But anyways, and then he just kept on, ignoring our request. Eventually, he said, okay, I'm going to meet with Muslim leaders from the state. But they handpicked few Muslim leaders to meet with, right? And those who met with him, with the exception of two individuals, I'll keep them on the side, but all of the others turned the meeting into requests from the governor for security funding for the mosques, right? And they did not even mention what really did the community want from this governor, right? And that's the problem. When you have those so-called leaders within a community who don't really tell the real demands or requests of the constituents when they get those meeting opportunities. And that was a problem for us, right? But it's not always funding. You mentioned funding. Funding is important, obviously, for politicians. They always want the funding.
Of course they do.
But it's not always the issue, because we know that within our communities, immigrants are very successful.
Yeah.
Immigrants come, I see immigrants that come from Haiti, and they come from Guinea, and they come from different countries, and within a year or 2 or 3, they have their own business. They have their own small businesses. They advance. They work very hard. The first thing they come to me, generally all immigrants, the first thing they ask me when they come, how quick can I get a work permit and a social so I could work?
Yeah.
That's the first thing they're concerned about. So they are successful, and they have money. And they're willing to donate and support campaigns if they know that it's actually aligned with them. So politicians misunderstand it. They think that people need to come and donate to your campaign for them to listen. But that's not how it works. You need to first tell people what they want to hear, and then they would come donate, and then you could work together. And we've seen very, very generous donations. Let's say, for example, Rashida Tlaib from Michigan, right? She had record numbers of donations this past year because of her advocacy. On the day she was censored in the Congress, that was a record day for donations for her, because people said that's wrong what happened with her, right? So there is, in our community, people who are willing to donate, to support, and most importantly, we have the votes, as you said. If Joyce Bailey just knows that 1/3 of her constituents are foreign-born, basically immigrant, new Americans, she would then worry more about her next election. But she either doesn't know, or she truly believes that this portion of her constituency is ineffective. They're not going to vote. They're not going to cause any effect against her. Right. And that's the problem.
Do you think it's the arrogance of the politicians that they don't even want to pay attention to their constituents sometimes, in terms of, I for the life of me, I cannot understand why, a specific portion of your constituents, or maybe large number of your constituents are foreign born, and still you don't even understand, or you feel like all I need to do is maybe on a Sunday or on a Friday go to a place of worship and just say, oh, I'm running for office, and you do this and you do that, and we just go and vote for that. We just go out and vote for you. I think, in my own opinion, I think that is sometimes, or most of the time, the arrogance of the politicians, the thinking that I just need to show my face and these people will vote for me. And secondly, one of the things I think we talked about in regards to civic engagement. I think most of these immigrants, all of us immigrants, I think sometimes we just need to create an avenue that can educate some of these immigrants in terms of, how to lend their voices on some of these issues. Because, to be honest with you, I don't trust some of the, I don't even know who are the gatekeepers in the African community. I don't know if they are representing the interests of the people or they are representing their own interests. So.
For me, there has to be a balance. If you're in there, one, you got to worry about how to keep this safe, and two, you got to worry about the people that put you in the first place, how you're going to satisfy them. So they got to be balanced. You cannot sit back and say that, okay, well, that person's looking their interest, because they surely are looking their interest, but you got to find that balance in between to say, okay, well, how much can you help the people that put you here, and how much can you actually do to sustain your own seat so you can continue to help them?
I think we should even, this concept of help, right? I don't even like it.
It's really serving.
You're helping. Because they put you there to, they basically you are supposed to be working for them. Right. So you're not helping me. Yeah. So if you come with this mentality that, oh, and here and I'm helping you, then there's a disconnect right there. And we should also, as the voters, we should also understand that they are not helping us.
Yeah.
We put them there, and we have to hold them accountable also.
Yeah. Accountability is the, that's one thing that I don't think immigrants do exercise that. If you end up having a town hall meeting and you are representing a group of people, oftentimes that town hall meeting, it could either be heated discussion that will take place that most likely will not lead up to any outcome of that, or it could be like the majority of your voters, that we do agree, and here's a check for you. So there's always.
But one thing
challenges
about the heated discussions, they do get very heated.
Okay.
Whether it's town hall or whether it's a WhatsApp chat,
Yeah.
or whether it's a Facebook comment
Those
section.
do get heated.
They get very heated, and I think the reason they get so heated is because we only have those conversations when things are very bad around us. Like if we're used to having those conversations on weekly, monthly, whatever, quarterly basis. If you have them regularly, when things are good and when things are bad, then you get used to those things.
Absolutely.
Then you don't have to just that one town hall meeting or that one discussion session discuss everything in life, right? Because we've discussed this. We've discussed our position on, for example, this subject or that topic or that topic. We've already discussed this in other meetings when things weren't as heated. So now let's discuss what we're facing today.
Absolutely.
But we don't have those often. So we don't. So the opportunity that comes up is usually in our worst time, and it gets very heated and bad. And we want to resolve, world peace in that one town hall.
Or in a span of 5 hours, right?
It's been 5 hours, exactly.
Very good point.
It's
Very good point.
It's interesting, man, and I think these kind of discussions that will hopefully trigger some of the things that we want politicians or anybody that who's like you would put it serving us
They're serving
would come
us.
to the table with better.
I tell people now when they're talking about this upcoming election, right? They've been talking about for the past 4, 5, 6 months in our community, who should we vote for, what should we do, and so on. And I tell them, we should now form PACs and fundraise for campaigns and meet the candidates. And my answer is usually, it's too late.
Yeah.
It's elections in a few months. We should now.
Few
We
weeks
should
now.
right now. What we should be working on is the 2025 election.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. The
From
midterm.
now, we should think of who are we going to run for city council
Yep.
that would represent the African community, that would represent the Muslim community, that would represent this community.
Absolutely.
Who could we run for the school boards? Who could we run for these different positions?
Absolutely.
It takes a while to do these things. But if you come just right before the election and say, oh, why isn't Kamala or Trump listening to our community? Because they already set their campaign.
Yeah.
It's set.
Yeah.
Their campaign is set. Their agenda is set. Their pollsters and their advisors have already told them this is the path to victory.
Absolutely.
And they completely underscore or undermine our existence. So no one's going to come and change their direction of their campaign 2 weeks or a month or 6 months even before an election. Because that's not how politics works.
By then it's already pre-planned, and you just kind of hitting the dots, moving to the next one, moving to the next one.
But ignorance of our community and arrogance,
Absolutely.
both are a combination.
Incomplete.
And I think complacency,
and really not believing that this community will deliver on what they're saying.
Yeah.
For example, some politicians take this community's votes for granted and say, you know what, they're threatening me that they're not going to vote for me. But they will, because the other side is much worse for them.
There you go.
And that's how it's been going on forever, right?
Absolutely. It's a
That's how it's
narrative.
been going on
Yeah.
every single election. We go back to Bush and
Absolutely.
and so on, and all these different campaigns. They say, okay, they're threatening, but they're going to come back because this is what the other side is.
And I think we as immigrants, I'm not even talking about African immigrants, I'm talking about immigrants in general, by the point you just made, I think we have to be strategic rather than reactive.
Absolutely.
People are planning ahead of time. We also should be planning ahead of time instead of, when election season is coming, now we need to form. No. We need to, it takes time. We just have to be strategic, and anyone is running for office is not something that, I'm just going to do it. You have to plan for it and be strategic rather than, okay, you know what, this person is not doing, then I'm just going to, no. We have to be strategic.
2 years ago, we elected the first two Muslim representatives in the Ohio House.
Yeah.
So if we were thinking strategically, then in this election, we would have had at least one or two more people running for different offices in the State House. But we don't, right? So, and that's how you grow, by every election cycle, grow your presence, grow your power, grow your, instead of just, going backwards. And we just fight with each other.
Yeah, we do.
Is there any last, everybody just will go around and just have the kind of sort of the conclusion comment. What would you like to see in the community right now that we're not doing it right now?
Well, I think for me it's just simple. Our diversity should be our strength. We should focus on, our diversity. We should focus on the fact that, we have one common goal as immigrants. We are here for a reason, and if we don't come together as people that have these shared common goals, we'll definitely be complaining about what we've been complaining for the past couple of years. God knows how long. But as I said earlier, lastly, we have to be strategic in where we're heading, and working with each other. Even if it's the gatekeepers, we have to know what they are, what their goals are, who they are really representing, and if we don't really find a way to work together, we will not. I think you were the one that said that in the Immigrants Make America Great. I remember, so we should remember that we as immigrants, we contribute a lot to the development of this country.
Absolutely. What about you, sir?
I appreciate that, Dr. Barth. I think there's strength in coordination. There are probably a million local things that are happening, anywhere from initiatives that RIC is doing in Riverside. Just on Saturday, I lead also another hat that I wear, the Symbolic Association of Columbus, Ohio. And on this past Saturday, we hosted a resume and job workshop that saw a little over 250 people show up at this small restaurant on the east side of Columbus, helping somewhere around 50 to 60 people create resumes and submit applications with their working permits. And I think the scarcity mindset of we don't have enough, in going into the reality of in everywhere you go across immigrant communities, whether it's West African, whether it's Palestinian, whether it's wherever you go, there's a whole bunch of things happening with very limited infrastructure, with a very passionate group of people doing a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And I think where our power is, or will be, is how do we go out of our comfort zone and me reach out to other people and say, what are you doing? This is what I'm doing for this community. How can we collaborate? That coordination will transform how not only we see our limited power, but being able to better advocate for ourselves. And I think too often we're okay with being siloed, and then we say our siloedness is our problem. But we don't do that legwork of reaching out and breaking out of our comfort zone. So I think that coordination is where I would like to hopefully see us go.
Well, first, thank you for this amazing, and hopefully we have more of those talks. First, I want to say is that we need to all acknowledge and understand that any attack or threat on any minority group should be conceived as a threat on everyone, on all other minorities. Right? So when the Haitian community in Springfield, for example, is demonized and attacked, know for sure, I promise you, that this would eventually come against your community.
Of course, absolutely.
Because no one's targeting Haitians just because they're Haitians.
No.
But it was just that was the easiest target for them at the moment. But after them, it could come to the Somali community or the Guinean community or the Palestinian community, because that's how it goes. That's how it's been for history. It was the Chinese, and then the Japanese, and then the Cubans, and then the list goes on, and the Muslims, and the list goes on.
Irish,
So every cycle, they find there's a new target,
Absolutely.
right? So that's why any attack on any minority group, even if ones you don't agree with, would eventually lead to an attack on you. That's why we need to be the first to respond and the first to support one another. No one is going to save you. Don't look for a savior, because the best savior, the best people who could actually help you and support you are the people who you resemble most, who you have more in common with. So we need to help each other first and stand with each other before we look for outsiders to come and help us. And the second thing is everyone needs to be more engaged, politically engaged. Very simply just voting, right? Even if you don't like anyone, like people in my community are saying, who should I vote for? And I did a sample ballot with a few friends, and we gave it around to them. We say, skip this race, skip this race. Half of our ballot is skip, right? Because we don't agree with them. I don't agree with either side on most things, right? So I say skip it, but at least, even if you just cast a vote, all right, or cast a ballot, then you are counted. Then the next time someone runs in this district, when they go and look at the numbers, they're going to see we have this X amount of votes that voted for this judge, but refused to vote for president or senator or this or that, right? How could I get those votes? So, and the only way you're counted is if you actually go and cast a ballot. And that's a first step. And then we need to think, as Doctor said, strategically, moving forward. Think of next year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now. And that's how you build power. Don't just think 2 weeks from today, because you're late. You're already late. So the damage has happened for this cycle. You need to look at the next and the next and the next cycles.
Absolutely true. Well, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time. It's been delightful conversations. I look forward to many, many, many more. And I want to thank you to the audience that if you find this content very helpful and informative, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel. There's many more to come, and hopefully we're changing the communities one conversation at a time. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Great.